Little Brother by Cory Doctorow, Chapter 3. We passed a lot of people in the road on the way to the Powell Street art. They were running or walking white-faced and silent or shouting and panicked. Homeless people cowered in doorways and watched it all, while a tall guy shouted at two mustached young men about something. The closer we got to the BART station, the worse the press of bodies became. By the time we reached the stairway down into the station, it was a mob scene, a huge brawl of people trying to crowd their way down a narrow staircase. I had my face crushed up against somebody's back, and someone else was pressed into my back. Daryl was still beside me. He was big enough that he was hard to shove, and Holu was right behind him, kind of hanging on his waist. I spied Vanessa a few yards away, trapped by more people.
Screw you!
I heard Van yell behind me.
Pervert! Get your hands off me!
I strained around against the crowd and saw Van looking with disgust at an older guy in a nice suit who was kind of smirking at her. She was digging in her purse, and I knew what she was digging for. "Don't mace him!" I shouted over the din. "You'll get us all, too!" At the mention of the word mace, the guy looked scared and kind of melted back, though the crowd kept him moving forward. Up ahead, I saw someone, a middle-aged lady in a hippie dress, falter and fall. She screamed as she went down, and I saw her thrashing to get up. But she couldn't. The crowd's pressure was too strong. As I neared her, I bent to help her up and was nearly knocked over her. I ended up stepping on her stomach as the crowd pushed me past her. But by then, I don't think she was feeling anything. I was as scared as I'd ever been. There was screaming everywhere now, and more bodies on the floor, and the press from behind was as relentless as a bulldozer. It was all I could do to keep on my feet. We were in the open concourse where the turnstiles were. It was hardly any better here. The enclosed space sent the voices around us echoing back in a roar that made my head ring, and the smell and feeling of all those bodies made me feel a claustrophobia I had never known I was prone to. People were still cramming down the stairs, and more were squeezing past the turnstiles, down the escalators, onto the platforms, but it was clear to me that this wasn't going to have a happy ending. "Want to take our chances up top?" I said to Daryl. Hell yes," he said. "This is vicious." I looked to Vanessa. There was no way she'd hear me. I managed to get my phone out, and I texted her. "We're getting out of here." I saw her feel the vibe from her phone, then look down at it, and then back at me and nod vigorously. Daryl, meanwhile, had clued Holu in. "What's the plan?" Daryl shouted in my ear. "We're going to have to go back," I shouted back, pointing at the remorseless crush of bodies. "It's impossible," he said. "It's just going to get more impossible the longer we wait," I said. He shrugged. Van worked her way over to me and grabbed hold of my wrist. I took Daryl's, and Daryl took Holu by the other hand, and we pushed out. It wasn't easy. We moved about 3 inches a minute at first, then slowed down even more when we reached the stairway. The people we passed were none too happy about us shoving them out of the way either. A couple people swore at us, and there was a guy who looked like he'd have punched me if he'd been able to get his arms loose. We passed 3 more crushed people beneath us, but there was no way I could have helped them. By that point, I wasn't even thinking of helping anyone. All I could think of was finding the spaces in front of us to move into, of Daryl's mighty straining on my wrist, of my death grip on Van behind me. We popped free like champagne corks an eternity later, blinking in the gray, smoky light. The air raid sirens were still blaring, and the sound of emergency vehicle sirens as they tore down Market Street was even louder. There was almost no one on the streets anymore, just the people trying hopelessly to get underground. A lot of them were crying. I spotted a bunch of empty benches, usually staked out by winos, and pointed toward them. We moved for them, the sirens and the smoke making us duck and hunch our shoulders. We got as far as the benches before Daryl fell forward. We all yelled, and Vanessa grabbed him and turned him over. The side of his shirt was stained red, and the stain was spreading. She tugged his shirt up and revealed a long, deep cut in his pudgy side. Someone freaking stabbed him in the crowd, Hulu said, his hands clenching into fists. Christ, that's vicious. Darrell groaned and looked at us, then down at his side. Then he groaned, and his head went back again. Vanessa took off her jean jacket and then pulled off the cotton hoodie she was wearing underneath it. She wadded it up and pressed it to Darrell's side.
Take his head,
she said to me.
Keep it elevated.
To Holu, she said,
Get his feet up. Roll up your coat or something.
Holu moved quickly. Vanessa's mother is a nurse, and she's had first aid training every summer at camp. She loved to watch people in movies get their first aid wrong and make fun of them. I was so glad to have her with us. We sat there a long time, holding the hoodie to Darrell's side. He kept insisting that he was fine, and we should let him up, and Van kept telling him to shut up and lie still before she kicked his ass. What about calling 911? Holu said. I felt like an idiot. I whipped my phone out and punched 911. The sound I got wasn't even a busy signal. It was like a whimper of pain from the phone system. You don't get sounds like that unless there's 3 million people all dialing the same number at once. Who needs botnets when you've got terrorists? What about Wikipedia? Holu said. No phone, no data, I said. What about them? Darrell said, and pointed at the street. I looked where he was pointing, thinking I'd see a cop or a paramedic, but there was no one there. It's okay, buddy. You just rest, I said. No, you idiot. What about them? The cops in the cars. There. He was right. Every 5 seconds, a cop car, an ambulance, or a fire truck zoomed past. They could get us some help. I was such an idiot. Come on then, I said. Let's get you where they can see you and flag one down. Vanessa didn't like it, but I figured a cop wasn't going to stop for a kid waving his hat in the street. Not that day. They just might stop if they saw Darrell bleeding there, though. I argued briefly with her, and Darrell settled it by lurching to his feet and dragging himself down Market Street. The first vehicle that screamed past, an ambulance, didn't even slow down. Neither did the cop car that went past, nor the fire truck, nor the next 3 cop cars. Darrell wasn't in good shape. He was white-faced and panting. Van's sweater was soaked in blood. I was sick of cars driving right past me. The next time a car appeared down Market Street, I stepped right out into the road, waving my arms over my head, shouting, "Stop!" The car slowed to a stop, and only then did I notice that it wasn't a cop car, or an ambulance, or a fire engine.